The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. There is so much to talk about here on the Wrestling is Real podcast tonight. Starting off on our list will be WrestleMania Backlash, which just finished up. I also got to go and talk about Under Siege from Impact Wrestling, which happened last night. And I will take a few minutes to go ahead and talk about the life and times of New Jack, Gangsta New Jack from ECW and Smoky Mountain Days, and of course was featured in Dark Side of the Ring. We got to talk about his passing at the age of 58 of a heart attack. And if I got some time, I actually have the Miss Universe pageant on in the background as I'm watching there. You have the top five, and Luis Fonsi is performing. And I still have my odds-on favorite right now, Mexico. Actually, I thought it was going to be either India, Myanmar, or the Philippines, but it looks like Mexico will be my odds-on favorite, because that's the one I'd want out of the top five if I had to go and pick. If I had to be the judge. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about Backlash tonight. Pre-show match, Sheamus over Ricochet. Scratch it. And it was, by the way, non-title. So we haven't seen Ricochet in forever. And then we had a triple threat match for the Raw Women's title, which I don't know if it really helped Rhea Ripley more at all by having her win that match or not. The match was okay. It just didn't, we watch so much of the 3-hour Raws, and I feel like I've seen the match over and over, and I feel like I've seen the variations of seeing Rhea Ripley or Asuka or Charlotte Flair fishing each other, that you can't do. This is the oversaturation of the booking that goes along, which is why I called the booking tonight mind-boggling. Because how can you go ahead and put any proper payoffs? How can you do anything tonight that really stands out in this pay-per-view that isn't fresh or interesting, because of the fact that Backlash feels like backwash? Because we have all the different copy and paste moves, as Vince Russo's called it, seeing the build-up to all these matches. And this is where the understanding is, the build-up to these matches are watered down, and they are rendered ineffective and rendered not that interesting, because of the fact we've seen all these three wrestlers facing each other, confronting each other in some way, shape, or form since WrestleMania. It's just what it is. And I have less interest every time I see all these three in the ring, because we've seen them all doing the same thing, going after the same title. There's nobody else new right now that's going after that title. It's just these three playing dancing partners, moving along, and then doing triple threat. And that's it. But with every match tonight, am I right? All the champions won. We had all retaining champions except for one. And that's it. That's pretty typical of a B-level pay-per-view, what we got tonight. Now, there were some good matches tonight later on in the card, but I really got nothing coming out of what was going on here watching that first match. The match that picked up a little bit later on, we see an injury angle with Dominik Mysterio where Roode and Ziggler attack backstage. And you couldn't have set this up before the week before on Raw or a few weeks ago. I mean, there was nothing in general to really build up the Mysterios against the Dirty Dawgs in the first place. We don't really care about the Dirty Dawgs. This is a makeshift tag team. So I felt like as a makeshift tag team, they're only going to hold on to this belt for so long, and that's it. And it doesn't matter to me. I just don't care about them. How many more tag teams do I need to see Robert Roode in or Dolph Ziggler in? Because they are not considered single stars. They were single stars and have individually done pretty well as themselves, but nobody else cares. Nobody else is considering it. And that's what the problem is here. I hate it. I hate it all. But the Mysterios, and giving the match where they gave it, and Mysterios winning the titles, yeah, that was the right call. And there's other things you could do with the Mysterios now. It's really nice to go and see Rey Mysterio working this out with his son and making this story. And I was totally fine with Dominik being crippled and being, compromise coming into the match. But when you have to look at this last minute, last second installing of booking that could have been done to give some intrigue to the actual show and lead up to it. Why doesn't this company want to properly set something up beforehand? Why can't they at least give us some pieces of the storyline that don't happen to lead into an automatic tag team match? Why can't we have a build up to something the next week? Does this company not want to do cliffhangers anymore? Because they don't. And that is something that's been missed greatly in this company. They do not have very many cliffhangers. What cliffhanger did you have from tonight's show? Nothing. We're just going to get business as usual. And we get a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and there's no real reason to have matches go to a Hell in a Cell. They're just going to do it anyway. This is atypical of the off-season of this company. They just don't care. They're just going to do things the way they want to do things, and that is it. Now, they probably don't want to have a live audience doing Hell in a Cell to come back, so they're going to take this pay-per-view and run it now as opposed to later in the year. But now the word is that Money in the Bank will possibly have a live audience. But still, every match feels like a Raw or SmackDown match we could have seen on TV, somewhere in a particular time slot or the main event. But with a lack of heat behind every match, with a lack of anything going on with some of these matches, I really just watched this show tonight like I watch a Raw and SmackDown. There was nothing overly special about any of it. And if that is what the company feels like right now, they feel content with the fact that I only have to pay $5 a month now to watch your shows, to watch the documentaries like a Rob Van Dam, which I didn't watch. I don't know if I will watch. I'll get it down the line maybe, but I'm not all the way into like having to watch nostalgic stuff. I want to watch new content. And so you give me an NXT takeover and you give me a pay-per-view every month. Yeah, you're giving me $5. And you're making it worth $5, basically. I mean, and that was fine. And I can understand why people want to go and pay $8 for that show every month. Pretty damn good. But the shows we're getting right now from the biggest company there is, this is the level that they're coming up with. I don't know if they just are not, or just ignorant to the fact, or blind to it, or what. But there is no way that they can think that they're doing a really good job right now building up stars. I mean, okay, I want to take a moment and talk about those that were going to be spotlighted and those that were given a chance to shine. I got to bring that up, what I talked about during the WrestleMania coverage, about who was actually getting something from this. So with Rhea Ripley, you kept her strong by having her win. She pinned Asuka instead of Charlotte Flair, so Charlotte and Rhea could still go ahead and take on each other, I would think. Then you have the Mysterios. I don't remember them having something, it was what it was for them to be in the tag team title run for the SmackDown titles. But again, that didn't make much of a difference to me at all because they were just brought in now to go ahead and take on and contend for those titles. So that's a new story, but the Mysterios it's a fun tag team to watch. Father and son together, great dynamic. So I liked all of that. Next up, you have Damian Priest. And Damian Priest, it's not his fault. Everything was done well. Again, we know that we're having some things going on where The Miz and Morrison are going to have a coming outs right now, and that's going to happen pretty soon. For Damian Priest, match was fine, but it's going to be totally overlooked. No one will remember Damian Priest and The Miz at Backlash. They're going to remember this match, which I understand why. Listen, we didn't necessarily care about Damian Priest and The Miz having a rematch. Didn't really matter. They caused a lumberjack match, and now we understand why. And I'm going to justify, and I'm going to say, okay, you decided to go and do the Army of the Dead promotion embedded in the match. We saw it with Kong and Godzilla on Dynamite. Same thing. That's okay. And then you go ahead and decide to do the zombies as lumberjacks. Just a thought. This is, again, mind-boggling booking. I understand why they did it. And that's not the problem. And I think everybody else is creating a problem like that. And again, the references to the exploding barbed wire match, that's overlooking. Come on. That's just overkill. Stop it. Stop it. Come on, my podcast brethren. You are better than going after that. You're better than going after that low-hanging fruit. But I will say this. Why didn't we do something with this in the match? Why couldn't we do something with the zombies? If they're going to use the zombies, why do you throw it in at the very last second? Why not use that and build it up towards the pay-per-view? I'm not going to say it's any good, but at least you could do it. You could tie in Lily and Alexa Bliss for all I care, as her creating a moment to go ahead and create, again, she wants to create ruckus among the entire WWE, so then let her do this. Let her summon zombies as lumberjacks. And then the wrestlers are detained by the zombies. I don't know. Sounds out there, but it's a train wreck I'd probably watch before I watch anything else. Just my thought. Just saying. I'm going to break into my rant and mention that Miss Mexico won Miss Universe, and she's a pretty girl. Congratulations to her. So I watched some of that after the Backlash pay-per-view was done. Back to my point. The pay-per-view doesn't need to be packed with all different little Easter egg storylines. We understand that sometimes some of these things are not going to work well. What I want to know is, why is it that Army of the Dead had to be promoted on Peacock? It's a Netflix film. I don't think there's anything where, unless there was something to be said about how USA wouldn't allow this promotional gimmick here on their show, or Fox. Maybe there's something to do with that. The credibility's got to be said. So Batista's in the movie. He's featured in it. Thus the reason why they had the Zombies movie in here, and they brought that all aboard. Now, I don't know if this insertion of the zombies really helped getting the movie Army of the Dead off and running. I don't remember seeing a trailer for it. Did you? Also, it's not a movie going to theaters. It's going right to Netflix. So, I'm not sure how that works out at all. Then the other thing was the lead up to the zombies was a tweet by Batista. It's bad. It's pretty bad. We don't need to have Batista actually mentioning that he's going to send the zombies down. It should have been Alexa Bliss sending the zombies. Would have made more sense. And regardless, having to go ahead and have another gimmick embedded in the Damian Priest versus The Miz, when we already had Bad Bunny overshadowing their WrestleMania match to a point, the same thing happens here. Now, this doesn't diminish Damian Priest at all, but it is time for him to go and move on to another opponent. I don't know who that opponent's going to be, but they need to give him somebody else to go and work with. Because I think The Miz and Morrison part, they're going to do a breakup, and that'll pair those two off. So who's the dancing partner for Damian Priest? We have to think about that. 3 solid championship matches to go and wrap things up. Bobby Lashley beats Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman triple threat match for the WWE Championship. They really worked really hard. Drew McIntyre was phenomenal feats of strength throughout. Michinoku driver, and what was the other move he pulled off on Strowman? Just picking him up. Just amazing upper body strength. kind of matching strength for strength with Lashley and Strowman together and the way they're set up. It's just damn good. So that in itself was pretty well done. And then, they did a lot of stuff back, outside. Strowman definitely with some strong moves, power slamming McIntyre to the announce table. The match was very strong. They worked really hard together. And this match did deserve a pay-per-view spot. So to not have anything like this of a match, and also because the pay-per-view build for this has been okay. This has been the one match I thought that was on the Raw side that was booked quite good. Not bad at all. And Bobby Lashley winning the match was the overall right thing to do. Then Bianca Belair and Bayley for the SmackDown Women's title, and Bianca Belair retains. A little botchy. And the story of Bayley kind of scratching and clawing and just kind of nitpicking her way to go ahead and stay in the match. Very heelish. The hair bit. They're obviously going to continue that part going forward. And I like the idea of, again, that's a little bit of a thought where Bayley's having her hair grow out a bit and it's a little bit wild and tussly. So to talk about hair versus hair, something about that's going to come up. I think they're going to go that route. But what are they going to do? Like, I don't see where Bayley, if Bayley has a match where they kind of go after each other again, I guess they have to do Hell in a Cell. But after that, they're going to probably, I would imagine they could do a hair versus hair match where Bianca would have to go ahead and get her ponytail cut off as a stipulation, or Bayley gets her hair shaved. I don't know. Something like that could be brought in as part of a match. I don't know if it would work for me, but they could do that. And then the match of the night, you give it to Roman Reigns and Cesaro, Universal title. 30 minutes to give this match. No outside interference was wonderful. That was the right thing to do there. And the story they told, where Cesaro was getting quite a bit of offense, they made him look strong. The obvious idea was to make Roman Reigns make Cesaro look good in defeat. I think they accomplished that. Because then they just decided to go and put Cesaro into this contender of the month spot that they're going to be doing for Roman Reigns going forward, I would imagine. Because there's no other way to do anything else. They built up Cesaro to put him up here. They're not going to give him the title. I don't think they'll ever give him the title. Title shots, now he looks credible. But then, does Roman Reigns even defend the title coming up at the pay-per-view coming up with Hell in a Cell? And the continuous point that Michael Cole hits over our head over and over and over again. Who's going to beat Roman Reigns? So maybe they're going to just go through a line of contenders to go after Roman Reigns, and that's what they're going to decide to do. Contender of the month. I don't know if that feels good or not. But I think what they need to do is Roman Reigns is probably going to go have to deal with Jimmy Uso, and that family triangle is going to be the storyline that goes up. So there's not going to be a new contender for him right away. It'll probably be those three having to work each other out and iron out the differences. Meanwhile, Cesaro goes back to Seth Rollins. They set that up tonight. Very weird they decided to go ahead and not only let Cesaro get beat down and lose to the guillotine choke, but then also get beat up by Jey Uso, and get beat up by Seth Rollins after that. The typical heel heat at the end of the night. No happy ending for anybody. I don't know if that works out for me or not, but that's what they decided to do. Oh well. The show was mind-boggling in a number of ways of what they did. And going back to my original point. So Rhea Ripley, I guess she stays stable. She's still holding on to the belt, but there's not much they've done with her in terms of Asuka and Charlotte Flair. But now that Asuka took the pin, Charlotte Flair is going to come back and go one-on-one. That most likely will be a Hell in a Cell match. And that's where they go with that going forward. Damian Priest needs a new opponent. Needs a new program with somebody else. But he hasn't been tarnished, nor has he been helped. Bianca Belair looks strong, had a strong match with Bayley, but this program will continue. So she's good. The way they've built up for her has been fine. She's still strong as a star and still deserving of the belt. Everything is good. So the program with Bianca Belair, she's progressing. Slowly progressing, doing fine as champion. Bobby Lashley continues to be unstoppable. And a very strong match with Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. Very good match overall. Short match, by the way. 14 minutes for it. And then Cesaro getting the spotlight tonight was very strong. It was a very good match. But they will not push him up any higher than that. And I feel like there are a lot of people probably in the locker room that are rooting for Cesaro to get these chances, only to just be kind of held back in a spot and not get to do much more. They're never going to give him that title run. I don't think he's ever going to get that, but that's okay. And there have been other stars they've used in this spot. You know, R-Truth was put in this spot to go ahead and do a match with John Cena. I can remember it was a Criminal Punishment, wasn't it? And then I remember Mark Henry in the salmon jacket and the build-up to the 1 month feud for that title match for John Cena. This is nothing new, but we need to go ahead and just appreciate the fact that Cesaro is doing this good. And at this point of his career, he's getting the best that WWE is going to probably give him, because they don't see him as a guy holding onto that belt being the face of SmackDown. They just don't. U.S. champion, Intercontinental champion, that's it. But that's where he's at. And then also, nothing about Big E and Apollo Crews. That's all in the background. Same as Zayn, Kevin Owens, all in the background. I'm guessing those stars are going to be doing something going forward, going into Hell in a Cell. So this is one of those B-level pay-per-views. Not everything that's going on in the storylines is being focused on here. Nothing with Lily and Alexa Bliss. We'll see where they go with things coming up. But there isn't anything right now besides the Roman Reigns and Bianca Belair reigns of their titles, and Bobby Lashley on that matter, and maybe the Mysterios, where I feel like, okay, there's some momentum there. Everybody else is a project in progress or a project in limbo right now. And that is subject to the booking, where the booking towards the pay-per-views has been lackluster for a long time. And I don't know. I know that since they dropped the $65 model, they don't feel like they need to go ahead and really give and deliver some kind of a overwhelming experience, except for WrestleMania and maybe SummerSlam, but then or Royal Rumble. That's it. But fans still watch it. I still watch it. And they're not going to do anything themselves to change it. You've already heard me say what needs to happen. Competition has to change everything. And I think it will. Might take another year or so for AEW to go ahead and position themselves a little bit higher. What I'd like to see now transitioning over to Impact Wrestling is to see Impact Wrestling getting a bit of a rub off of what they're doing right now with Kenny Omega, with Finn Juice, with El Phantasmo, and all the things they're doing over there. Because I really do like what they're doing right now. I like a lot of what they're doing in terms of their storylines, what they're doing with the shows themselves. Post-Rebellion has been okay. I've liked what they've done so far. So Kenny Omega, the build-up was to find a number one contender for the Impact World title, which is going to be defended at Against All Odds, June 12th. And what they've done so far hasn't been bad. So they were around 100,000 viewers 2 weeks ago, post-Rebellion episode. 120,000 viewers. And they drew 123,000 viewers on Access TV this past, or the Thursday night before. I don't see them giving me the information about the ratings from this past week. Yeah, looks like we don't have the ratings yet for May 14th. Still too soon to give us. But still pulling over 100,000 viewers. They were pulling up to 200,000 when Kenny Omega's appeared, and they've done some things with him. It's just a matter of people just finding the show and actually watching it. And also being a taped show without an audience still. But the show's still quality. It's not bad. It really is not a whole lot of filler. I think the Swingers Palace stuff is actually pretty funny. And with some of the matches they do, they're not bad at all. I think they had a pretty good show last night. Brian Myers defeats Black Taurus. And then you had, and there was a couple of matches they had early on in the undercard that really didn't make a difference to me. I only got to catch the championship matches that were later on in the night. Kimberly and Susan lose to Tenille Dashwood and Taylor Wilde. And Tenille Dashwood is a face. Okay. Then a number one tag team contenders match. Ace Austin and Madman Fulton defeating Triple XL. Rohit Raju and Shira. TJP and Petey Williams. And Ace Austin and Madman Fulton will go ahead, and I think they're actually going after the tag titles this Thursday on Impact. W. Morrissey defeats Willie Mack. I expected that to happen. And then Rich Swann comes in for the save because Morrissey just tried to go and take a steel chair to Willie Mack. So Rich Swann back in the storyline somewhere. Is W. Morrissey somebody that he's going to be confronting? Is that where the program's going to go? We'll find out what that's going to be Thursday. I caught on right when they were going into the Knockouts Tag Team title match. So Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering go as transitional champions, and Fire and Flavor get the titles back. Now, I'm going to say this too. On my TikTok feed, I responded to one of the wrestling TikTokers out there talking about Hit Row, which I did not talk about, the NXT faction that was formed, which features and really is the led by Isaiah Swerve Scott. Now, we could talk about factions or groups that are put together that really stand out and feel an authenticity. And where I go is this. The authenticity of a faction that might be ethnic or a minority or black and Hispanic, whatever you want to say, the authenticity should be there and it should stand out. So now I think of a couple different factions when the guy I'm not going to refer to, he talked about how good the Hit Row promo that they did on NXT was. I didn't think so. And I think Isaiah Swerve Scott would serve better to not be part of a faction. I prefer him better solo. But they're going to put this together. It feels like a black version of the way they have to go and build Johnny Gargano together. I wasn't impressed by his entourage. I'm still impressed by Isaiah Swerve Scott. The heel turn they put on him against Leon Ruff, that was good. I like the move to go there. But to give him, I feel they're anchoring him with Hit Row. And I don't know how long this will last. But when it comes to factions or tag teams that give me some authenticity, that feel real and feel like, I can get behind, Fire and Flavor is one of them. I love Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan. I think they fit really well together. That's a tag team that it's good to see the belts go back on them. The other group I also want to point out is Injustice in MLW, which I think it's also, it's a bit of an underrated group. Now, it is a little bit different. Coco Brazil was part of that. But I think Myron Reed stands out. He's quite good overall. Not a big wrestler, but I like the gimmick with the chest protector. His promos against Leo Rush, his work as the middleweight champion, I thought he was a very good champ. And only the Hurt Business, I feel like, has Hurt Business or Nation Domination were two black intense factions that really did work out for me. And there's probably some others. But I'm not feeling Hit Row. I'm definitely feeling Fire and Flavor. I'm definitely feeling Injustice. It's just how it is. And I'm sure there's probably others that I'm not thinking of right now. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else. So it's good to go and see Fire and Flavor become champions again. X Division title, a very good match with El Fantasmo versus Josh Alexander. And Josh Alexander stands out in this match. Ankle lock submission. Redefining the X Division, Josh Alexander is champion. And not being missed without having his tag team partner, Ethan Page, who's moved on to AEW. Not missed at all. I think the transition from him from tag team to singles has been very effective. Quite good. Also getting a win over Ace Austin and getting the win here. He's getting strong wins across the board. Very solid champion. I like Josh Alexander a lot. He is very good. He is good in this role. Havoc is contender of the month against Deonna Purrazzo. And Deonna Purrazzo was good. You know, I forget who it was. I think it was Matt Striker that actually talked about, you know, could just keep watching Deonna Purrazzo wrestle. She's really good. And they haven't really built anyone up right now that's really to the level of Deonna Purrazzo they could bring on to go ahead and compete. But Deonna Purrazzo's beating everybody. And I don't know who you go to next. You know, I would love to go see Rosemary back out there taking on the likes of Deonna Purrazzo. We could go back to that. I don't know. But they need to find somebody else new for her. She's already gone through Tenille Dashwood. She's already gone through most of the rest of the roster at this point. And then a very good match. 6-man tag with Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Eddie Edwards and Finn Juice. And Eddie Edwards gets the pinfall off the Boston Knee Party. And it's good to see Eddie Edwards standing out. And, you know, when I got to talk about somebody from Impact Wrestling that really is the standout star there, it's him. Because I think, well, I mean, he's always felt really good working in this company, staying here this whole time. Probably grateful because of the fact that Eddie Edwards, I never really thought he would be the level of a single star like he is now, but he definitely is. That's a face that you know represents Impact Wrestling in a very positive light. He's really good. He's damn good. And nobody ever tries to go after him. Nobody ever considers to go ahead and try to acquire him. Or there's never any talk about how that guy could do really well somewhere else. But he's just good. I like the whole look with him, the music, his matches, his work ethic. He's fantastic. That guy is just a workhorse. He's good. He's more than a good hand. And Finn Juice really good in the match tonight. So that was good to see all that. Number one contendership for the World Championship. Sami Callihan versus Moose versus Matt Cardona versus Chris Sabin versus Trey Miguel versus Chris Bay. A lot of people to go and continue with and deal with. So they definitely went kind of a triple threat style where they had different people in the ring and different focusing on things where their match was going on. You thought Sami Callihan would be the one that would be the odds-on favorite. Moose wins. And it's about time Moose gets this main event spot. Because I feel like Kenny Omega will drop the belt to Moose. This has been meant to go on for a long time. Moose has been meant to be crowned Impact World Champion. It was going to be done before. Or they put him all the way up to the top before, only to fall short. And they've done that to him because they felt like it wasn't the right time. And I feel like more than ever, Moose has earned the spot. He has done really well in a lot of different things. And he has stood out, whether it was Ken Shamrock or EC3 or, pick. You're Eddie Edwards. I mean, he's done a lot of good. And it's time for Moose to go ahead and jump to this spot here. I hope he does get this win over Kenny Omega, and that's the guy that takes the belt back. Because Moose is the most deserving, and he is, I think, probably the one person that has never been champion that should be. He absolutely should be a world champion. He's put in the work. He has had great matches on TV. The guy looks amazing right now. Some real diamonds in the rough on Impact Wrestling. Because like I said, with the knockouts, I like Kiera Hogan, Tasha Steelz. I think Deonna Purrazzo is very good. And with the knockouts, sure, you could go ahead and say some things where they're not diva-like. They don't have like all the looks or whatever. Or they might be a little bit beneath the athletic level or the looks of, say, what WWE has, right? I don't give a shit. I like my girls being a little bit thicker. And I noticed that Deonna Purrazzo is a little bit thicker, and I love it. Jordan Grace, obviously, thicker. Havoc, Kimberly, right? You can pick. They do not discriminate, and that's good. And there's definitely some characters within the Knockouts division. Again, we know that the Knockouts division is always really good. I might not say it enough on this show, but I feel in my heart that they are very good. It's a very good division. It's a fun division to watch. And then Eddie Edwards stands out to me. Josh Alexander stands out to me. Ace Austin stands out to me. Rich Swann won me over in his match with Kenny Omega. That was actually a really good match he put together. But Moose, that's a hell of a... Again, they're not waiting... I keep saying it again. And they're not waiting for Slammiversary, which I'm surprised they're not doing that. You could build that match up in 2 months and get to that point. Maybe something will happen before then, and they're just going to give us kind of a lead off, and Moose will lose in some kind of a DQ screwed up fashion. And then Moose will get another shot at the belt at Slammiversary. I'm not worried about him being crowned as Slammiversary or not, but they could do that. And I don't know if that'll be in front of a live crowd or not, but Moose needs to be champion. I want him to be champion. And I hope they get to do that point at some point. One more thing before we wrap things up. We have to talk about Jerome Young. New Jack. Dies at age 58. His wife Jennifer told PW Insider that he died of a heart attack on Friday afternoon in North Carolina. And WWE also confirmed the news. So New Jack, we know, throughout the 90s, was best known for his work in ECW. Notorious for his extreme and quite often risky and controversial wrestling style. His tactics involved dangerous bumps or shooting, in which he would do unplanned or unscripted wrestling moves, all part of ECW's bloodier and more intensely violent performances. But what really caught the eye was his work with Mustafa over in Smoky Mountain Wrestling against the Rock and Roll Express. And New Jack was also involved in ECW's mass transit incident in which he bladed another wrestler, but so deeply severing two of the wrestler's arteries and causing them to bleed profusely. New Jack was a member of the Gangsters along with Mustafa Saeed and Eliminator John Cronus. Upon their debut in 95 in ECW, they formed an instant rivalry with another group called Public Enemy, earned anti-hero acclaim for using weapons like stapler guns, trash can lids, and more during their matches. And Young would come out famously to the Ice Cube and Dr. Dre song Natural Born Killers, which, when I heard that, I actually love Natural Born Killers. I think it's a great rap song. And he left his imprint in wrestling and pop culture in other ways. He was, for me, one of the most memorable things. It was just part of the act that was ECW. If you have the common random New Jack appearance, you knew you were going to get about 5 minutes of just pure craziness and pure extreme violence. And he delivered it. I don't think he had to go do the balcony jumps, but he did all the time. I can't say much to be said about what I really appreciate with New Jack. I think it was great. But I think that Paul Heyman on Talking Smack last night said a lot, and he gave a very heartfelt tribute. So here's what he did. Here's what Paul Heyman said on Talking Smack. Quote, I was asked before this show went on the air if I would like to say a few words about the passing of ECW original New Jack. I avoid eulogies as best as I can because anytime I'm faced with them, the first thing that comes to mind is, hey, this sucks and there's no good spin I could put on it. When I heard that New Jack had passed away, My hope was that New Jack had turned to his own wife and said, hey, I'd like to read my own obituary. Call a bunch of people and tell them that I died. Everybody's going to make a big fuss about it, and I'll read about my own life. Then at some point this weekend, they'd sell a bunch of T-shirts, and he'd sit and go, gotcha, because that's what New Jack would do. Apparently, it's not so, which sucks. Usually, when we would pay tribute to somebody here in WWE, we would show a lot of footage of that person. And to be blunt, we can't show you a lot of footage of New Jack because he was the most non-PG performer in sports entertainment history. New Jack was a gangster. Everybody who was a fan of ECW that came to ECW who watched ECW knew that fact from the moment his music hit. And no, we never had the rights to use his music. Why? Because as an organization, we were gangsters. And New Jack was the most gangsters of all of us gangsters. It's over 20 years ago. To anybody that ever saw New Jack perform live or heard him cut a promo, understood just how real he was. Jerome Young was quite an individual, but deep in his heart, he was every bit of New Jack that he could offer you. I wish you all an most extreme weekend gangster style. And he crossed his arms. If you have not watched the Dark Side of the Ring story on New Jack, go watch it. Very explanatory about the career this guy leaves us. New Jack was a hell of a talker and was a hell of a showman. He was not the best wrestler in the world, but he was entertaining. And extreme as extreme can be. He is one of the true pillars that made my experience of ECW really, really fun. There we go. So a pretty packed card coming up the next month. Let's talk about it. In 2 weeks, we have AEW's Double or Nothing, which we know that's going to be a hell of a show that they have coming up. Quickly run through their card that they have coming up in 2 weeks. So far, Kenny Omega will take on Pac and Orange Cassidy in a three-way match for the world title. Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker for the women's world title. And Hangman Adam Page versus Brian Cage. Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Ogogo, and they will have a Casino Battle Royal match. And so far, Christian Cage and Matt Sydal have been mentioned they will be in that match. So that'll be a good show they have coming up in 2 weeks. And then after that, we'll have an NWA show when Our Shadows Fall. I have not caught the last NWA show, and I've caught no NWA shows since. I need to do that. It's just, I have not decided to go over to get to Fight TV and catch up on it. I don't know if I have to pay for it or not, so I have not looked. Takeover in Your House is on June 13th. And then Hell in a Cell is June 20th, so we have a few weeks away from that. And they should mention that during Takeover weekend, in Your House weekend, we will have Against All Odds, the next Impact Wrestling show on June 12th. We should make mention of that. So anyway, we'll leave it there. Come back Wednesday going on Thursday, do another Wrestling Consider podcast. Because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts. And search King of Podcasts on YouTube or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.